This is part 5 of the Tippit shooting. In part 4, I established that J.D. Tippit was in Dealey Plaza. And if you're following along, you'll realize that I believe that J.D. Tippit was involved with Lee Harvey Oswald in a Cuban plot to assassinate the president, a plot that had been infiltrated by U.S. intelligence and was under the control somehow through that infiltration of U.S. intelligence, but that Oswald and Tippit thought that they were working in a Cuban plot. And I'm not real comfortable with my Tippit communist sympathies interpretation here, because I have no indication whatsoever that he had communist sympathies. But there is, as I've gone over before, reason to think that his son did, and so I think that might be reason to think that he did. But anyway, here in part 5, I'm going to go over the evidence that implies a Tippit shooting scenario, and I will present my speculative scenario. And one major basis for thinking that Tippit was shot in Dealey Plaza is that we have reports of 2 different puddles of blood in Dealey Plaza. I think there was only one, but I think there really was one. And a puddle of blood without an explanation implies that somebody may have been shot in Dealey Plaza. And of course, I think that's Tippit. Now, I'm not going to go into comparing these 2 accounts of the puddles of blood very deeply. For a long time, I was convinced that the Mal Couch puddle of blood was the genuine one. Now I am not convinced of that anymore. Now I think the Jerry Coley puddle of blood is actually the real one. And briefly, the reason that I've dismissed the Mal Couch puddle of blood is because his description of where it was puts it in that yellow shaded area up at the top of the diagram. And to me, it's simply not credible that somebody could have been shot there, and that there wouldn't have been many witnesses who noticed that, witnesses who are not controllable, and that story would have popped out somehow. Also, the location of this puddle of blood puts it to where Victoria Adams would have walked right by it on her way around the building, and she was a very good witness who noticed things and remembered things. I don't think she would forget a puddle of blood. And for several minutes after that, she was standing in front of the building, and if someone had been shot here after that, I'm sure she would have noticed that too. So I dismiss the Mal Couch puddle of blood, and I accept the Jerry Coley account. I'm not going to go through it, but I now find it to be the credible account. So that's where I'm putting the Tippit shooting, where the Coley puddle of blood is, or where I think it is. These are 2 frames from the Darnell film. In the bottom frame here, I have circled in red what I presume to be the puddle of blood. This location is behind the Black Dogman wall. I put both frames here because you can't see very well in the frame where you can see the puddle what the location is, but in the frame above you can see very clearly, if you're familiar with the architecture, that this is the Black Dogman wall. The guy there with white pants in the left area of the frame is standing exactly where Black Dogman was standing during the assassination. And this in the Betzner film, circled in purple there, is the Black Dogman, so called by some people because he kind of looks like he's a black dog sitting on the wall there. Of course, it's not a black dog sitting on the wall. It's a person standing there behind the wall, apparently with his hands on the wall. And that's the same position that the man here in the Darnell film is standing in, the man with the white pants. So that orients you to where this puddle of blood, or where this puddle of blood is. It's behind where Black Dogman is standing during the assassination. this film was taken very shortly after the assassination, probably about 5 minutes, I would think, on the north side of the pergola. And the Black Dogman area is to the right of the frame at that moment there. And it shows a parking area that looks to be somewhat exclusive. We have one automobile there, the station wagon, and two people, one of whom on the right is obviously a police officer wearing a white hat from the traffic division, and this man walking away from the car is probably a plainclothes police officer of some kind. So this looks to be an area that is off limits to the general public and is being controlled by the police. And it is of interest to me because of the station wagon there. Ambulances in 1963 were station wagons. This ambulance here doesn't appear to have any markings on it. If you've been watching this series, I talked about Ambulance 601 picking up J.D. Tippit in Dealey Plaza. Well, there's also another ambulance referred to as a transfer ambulance. I think probably that what we have here is the transfer ambulance. It wouldn't be Ambulance 601. This way, Clayton Butler wouldn't know where the body he had came from necessarily. And I think probably the transfer ambulance is parked here. And at this point, J.D. Tippit's body is already in it. And here I've marked out the area of the puddle of blood. Of course, it's on the other side of the structure there, but it's about there. And where this station wagon, I think, as an ambulance is parked, is about as close as you could possibly park an ambulance to where the puddle of blood is, if you wanted that ambulance to be off limits to the public. So that confirms the idea in my mind, though it's not absolute proof certainly, but it confirms the idea that this station wagon is an ambulance, that it was prearranged. It was part of the plan for it to be here so that the person who created the puddle of blood could be put into it. Now in this frame from the Weigman film, you can see Charles Hester and his wife Beatrice. I've talked about them before. He's at the back of the pergola, looking out an opening in the back of the pergola. And as I've gone over before, I think they were conspiracy tools, but they were surprised by what happened. And anyway, the relevance to this video is that Charles is looking out the back of the pergola, and the ambulance is out. What I say is the ambulance is out back of the pergola. In the Weigman film here, you can't see exactly where he is in relation to the entire structure of the pergola. But here in this frame from the Bell film, you can see exactly where he is. He's still in motion here, and he's moving towards a particular spot. And that particular spot is the sixth row of openings from the beginning where the shelter begins. And here in this, I guess I've got 4 photographs here in one. I've marked out where Hester is standing in the pergola, viewing it from the other side. I've got the puddle of blood marked out here too. But where Hester is standing, and in the direction he's looking, as you can see him in the Weigman film, he almost is looking exactly at where this ambulance is, where this station wagon is. And in the lower left corner, I've got a blue dot on the opening that he looks through. And when you see him in the Weigman film, he seems to be looking in a particular direction, off to his left a bit. And that's right where the station wagon is. So he's in a perfect position to witness J.D. Tippit being brought to the station wagon. Of course, he never said that, and as I said, I think he's an assassination tool, an unknowing tool of the assassination. So I think he's controllable, and that's why he didn't say that. But he's in a perfect position to observe, and if he's looking out there, he must be looking at something, right? And now I want to introduce Stepman. There are 3 Stepmen. Two of them have been identified, one as F. Lee Maud, and I have a question mark there because I'm not convinced by that identification. Another as Emmett Hudson. I do believe that identification. He's the groundskeeper who works this area. And the third stepman, the one I'm calling stepman for this video, is not officially identified, though according to Emmett Hudson, he was in his late 20s and he said he worked on Industrial Avenue. That's what stepman told Hudson. So of course I have some ideas about stepman, but for the purposes of this video, I'm identifying him as a probable tool of the assassination plot. I think his job here was to make sure that nobody was in the line of fire for the throat shot, which goes off to their left. And so I think his job here is to make sure that very important shot does not have an obstruction, a person between the gun and the target. And so I think he's probably an assassination tool, and that was one of his jobs. So this shows the setup of the situation for my proposed scenario. We have Hester, Charles Hester, looking, well, this is not all at the same time, but Hester looks out of the back of the pergola in the ambulance area. We've got the puddle of blood located there, Black Dog Man and Stepman. Now this is a somewhat speculative interpretation, of course. I'm not saying that I am convinced this is exactly how it happened, but this is my proposed scenario. Tippit is shot at puddle of blood while JFK is being shot. I say this because if the plan was to shoot Tippit and not have anyone notice, then you'd want to shoot him while JFK is being shot so that nobody would hear the shots into Tippit, and also that they would be looking towards the president, not to wherever Tippit it is. Now, why he would be shot in this location behind Black Dog Man, I don't know, but I think probably he was under the control of the managers of the assassination. They were telling him what to do, so they could place him probably wherever they wanted to. And then I speculate that Stepman and Black Dog Man, immediately after the shooting, took Tippit's body to the ambulance as Hester watches. Of course, I don't know what Hester is seeing when he's watching, but he apparently is looking in this area, and that would probably mean something is happening in that area. And I think this is what is happening. I think Stepman and Black Dog Man took J.D. Tippit's body to that ambulance. And you can see Lee Bowers' tower right there. Of course, if this was happening, Lee Bowers would have seen it. And maybe that's why he had that accident he had. So that's how it went down. That's how J.D. Tippit was shot in Dealey Plaza. That's my best understanding of the scenario now.